Hey guys, so chapter 1, this time we're going to section 1.5, so bias in sampling. I don't know why it's not, there we go. All right, so if the results of a sample are not representative of the population, then the sample has bias. So 3 sources of bias, we have sampling bias, non-response bias, and response bias. Sampling bias means that the technique used to obtain the individuals to be in the sample tends to favor one part of the population over another. Sampling bias also results in undercoverage, which occurs when the proportion of one segment of the population is lower in a sample than it is in the population. So just like we were talking about in the previous section, one good way is to see the population and just randomly select people in each of these groups. So what if we selected a couple of people that are for some sort of law to be passed and others that aren't for those laws to be passed? If we look at this right here and we grab this sample right here, it looks as if this law is going to be passed more with this group of people, the people that are either for this law, against this law, when in reality, it looks like there's a good representation of both colors, right? If anything, there's more blue than there is red. So that would be our sampling bias, the bias in the sample that we end up getting. So that's why stratified sampling is a really great way to kind of counteract all of that. And yeah, so there we go. All right, next, sampling bias also results due to undercoverage, which occurs when the proportion of one segment of the population is lower in the sample than it is in the population. So we just did a really good example there. All right, next, non-response bias exists when individuals selected to be in the sample who do not respond to the survey have different opinions from those who do respond to the survey. So if I were to walk outside, and remember, I love dogs. I love dogs or animals in general. So if I were to go out and see promotion for like killing dogs or hurting dogs for some reason, or if I were to see a petition to abolish PETA or something really crazy like that, I personally am not going to even respond to that because I don't want PETA to be abolished. PETA needs to be there so that way we could report people being abusive to animals. Like we could report animal abuse to PETA and stuff like that. So non-response bias, I would actually cooperate with the non-response bias. If we look at that, and all the people that are for abolishing PETA, they go run and like chant with the people that are doing that survey. That's not a good representation of the people in that area, or it's not a good representation of the people in the sample. So again, that would be kind of like convenience sampling. Only the people that want to go over there are the ones that end up going. So non-response bias is just like that. Non-response can be improved through the use of callbacks or reward/incentives. So if they were to ask me like, hey, could you give your opinion on abolishing PETA? Then I would say, you know what? No, I'm not going to talk to you about that. Oh, what about this free t-shirt? Okay, yeah, maybe I'll do it for a free t-shirt. So there's always going to be callbacks. So another one is them actually physically calling you. Your number could be part of like a bunch of different like lists, and they actually sell these lists to different people. So if they have you on some sort of calling list, they could actually call you for some of these response biases or non-response bias. Now for response bias, if response bias exists when the answers on a survey do not reflect the true feeling of the respondent. So a good example of this would be me asking you guys, do you feel that students should earn their grade, or should they just be given a grade and not learn any of the material for the next class to fail. That, even me saying it out loud, I couldn't really understand exactly what I was asking. So that would be a response bias. So us forcing the reader to read these keywords, so that way we could kind of just imagine that the population thinks a certain way, or for us to imagine that all of these things hurt. Or if you've ever read like a newspaper and the newspaper itself says, are you for raising taxes for mean bullies? And then it goes into like a little bit of a better explanation on what they're actually asking. So are you for raising taxes for mean bullies? When in reality, it might be something that's raising taxes for some sort of school fund, or for like, I don't know, a STEM center for an elementary school, or extra PE time, or something weird like, or something different like that. So response bias is you looking at these questions and you're like, I don't want to support these bullies. And you're kind of being forced to say this sort of, you're being forced to say something that you don't actually believe in, when in reality, you do want to like support kids and their education and stuff like that. Let's see, types of response bias. We have an interviewer error, misrepresented answers, wording of questions, order of questions or words, type of question, either open questions or closed questions. And we also have a data entry error. And kind of looks like it's going to go into all of these. So although not technically a result of response bias, data entry error will lead to results that are not representative of the population. Once data are collected, the results may need to be entered into a computer, which can result in input errors, or the respondents may make a data entry error. For example, a 39 might be entered as a 93. It is imperative that the data be checked for accuracy. In this text, we present some suggestions for correcting the data. But yeah, interviewer error would be whoever is interviewing has some sort of error in their questioning. Misrepresented answers. So misrepresented answers would be like, do you enjoy Netflix, or do you prefer watching other streaming or using other streaming services? So us putting that, we could possibly put, I don't know, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, but we're avoiding all of the other really good like programs, I guess. The wording of the question. So wording of the question has a lot to do with it too. Order of the questions or words. So things should flow naturally, but if you kind of put all the really tough questions in the very beginning, or if you put the really easy questions, do you want to abolish us paying taxes, or do you want to like kind of progressing into something that you want the reader to kind of answer towards the end? There's that type of question. So either an open-ended question or a closed question. So do you hate murderers? Of course you hate murderers, right? So that's a very open-ended question. So are we talking about murderers of fish, so that way we could eat fish in a restaurant? Maybe not so much. Or murderers as in like Richard Ramirez. I would say I'm not a fan of Richard Ramirez. So very open-ended questions. So you can't really just ask like all willy-nilly. You can't just ask questions like that. Non-sampling errors, so results from undercoverage, non-response bias, response bias, data entry errors. Such errors could also present in a complete census of the population. So sampling errors result in results from using a sample to estimate information about the population. This type of error occurs because a sample gives incomplete information about the population. And that's it for section, what was that? I believe it was 1.5, maybe. So if you guys have any questions on this one, please email me. But if not, good luck on your homework.